Can I refill your eggnog for you, get you something to eat, drive you out in the middle of nowhere, and leave you for dead? Here's your Christmas spot on the Vinyl Sugar Vinyl Idolz, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Clark Griswold. Clark Griswold is determined to keep his family from walking out on a fun, old-fashioned family Christmas. We're all in this together in a full-blown 4-alarm holiday emergency, celebrating the most enduring traditions of this season, best enjoyed in the warm embrace of kith and kin. This tree is a symbol of the spirit of Griswold family Christmas. Squirrel! It may not be the Jelly of the Month Club, but it could be something just as sweet. Ho ho, how about before we get a closer look at the Vinyl Idolz, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Clark Griswold, we take this tape measure of mine and we see just how tall the figure actually stands. Ho ho! Hold on right there, humble reviewer. In fact, this isn't even a figure, it's a statue. And what it's doing right now is the same thing it's going to continue to do till we get to the final looks of him. In fact, the only thing I might even end up doing is maybe removing the display stand. Technically, it's something that's separate in the packaging. Technically, it's something that doesn't even really need to be on the bottom of his feet in order for him to stand and doing what he's doing right now. That's a whole lot of things to say. The last thing I will say, though, before we get down to the details of this guy, is measuring to the top of his head. This statue of Clark is going to be about 9 inches in height. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit less if you remove the display base. Or that's going to translate to a statue that's about 21.5 or 22 centimeters tall. I did get Clark Griswold here from Retro Festive, my go-to site, it seems, when it comes to anything holiday related. If you see something unique on this channel when it comes to reviews during those times of Halloween and Christmas, 9 times out of 10, I usually get them from Retro Festive. Now, getting this guy out of the packaging, he does technically have a separate display base. The base is something that just attaches onto the bottom of his feet. The weird thing, though, about the base is if you look at it, there's a larger peg and a smaller peg. If you look at the bottom of his feet, it doesn't necessarily affect the way the figure stands. If anything, he's a little back heavy, but he stands still fine. You don't even really need this. To then add to that, I would add, why would you need to have why would you even have to add a larger and smaller peg when I think 2 pegs of equal size would be perfectly fine? I mean, it doesn't mean that he's going to stand any bit better by having then to struggle figuring out which peg goes placed in which feet, because you can clearly see there's a smaller hole and a larger hole, so it has to be a certain way. The feet also are a struggle to get onto his display base. You have to take the legs and sort of widen them apart from one another just so that they can actually attach onto the pegs. I know sooner rather than later, one of these pegs is probably going to be breaking off because you feel like you really have to force them on there. One thing I really also would have liked to see, and I don't have any other vinyl sugar figures, is that the bases themselves would have had something relating to the character. At the very least, could it not have said National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or Clark Griswold or something just to indicate what movie this character is from? We're going to remove the base for at least right now. Why? Off to the side it goes. Getting a closer look at Clark Griswold here from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. A go-to. I don't maybe watch as many of the National Lampoon's standalone films, but every time Christmas rolls around, yeah, at least this one will be one I watch every year round. The character is, of course, carrying around his little moose glass that's filled inside, but looks like maybe he's drank half of it. There's eggnog inside. I don't know, maybe he's added something else in there as well. The mug is securely attached onto his hand. It is one little bit of thing that I imagine probably would break if you're not too careful, because it looks like it's obviously using clear plastic. But I do like the little touch that they actually added a little bit of eggnog in there as opposed to an empty glass. Head sculpt looks good on this guy. He is, though, a little on the flatter side. I mean, it's one of the things, though, with the vinyl sugars. Vinyl sugar is an extension of what Funko was doing. I don't think you can really get a lot of these figures anymore. Again, I happen to find this online. I had come across a couple of vinyl sugars in the past. They had done Ghostbusters. They did Seinfeld. They also did, as well, Back to the Future. But this one obviously caught my eye because clearly it was also a Christmas classic of mine. I think it looks good. I mean, it's just, though, a little on the flat side. It actually looks like he's got run over. He looks just as flat as the cat inside the living room. The cat sped all 9 lives. The head sculpt, though, I don't think is denying at all that looks like Chevy Chase. Though a little on the more flatter side. The one thing I really kind of like about the vinyl sugars is that they look like claymation animation, like those Christmas shorts. Those Christmas specials. One thing I would really like to see, and this is always something I kind of really thought to myself, you know, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, they've done sequels. I mean, they're never really as good. Cousin Eddie was always really good. I think he was in the second one, and I was terrible. But I think if they ever wanted to maybe go down the road and maybe release another Christmas Vacation, I think it would be kind of fun. And a Christmas, tradition, make it maybe as a stop motion or claymation film. Bring back all the original voice actors. They could still voice the roles. And imagine, like, if you had National Lampoons that looked like this, because it does really very much for me like look like a claymation short. Again, there's no posability at all on this, but the head sculpt is pretty good still. He's got the little cleft on his chin. I think the expression looks very much like Clark Griswold in the movie. They've even got the little sleigh bells there on the side of his hat. Down below, of course, he has also his sweater, nice printed tie. Whereas, of course, the cardigan. The cardigan is a nice length there as well. It's a pretty well-painted piece. But again, like, there's no posability at all to this. If you thought, for example, you could go in there and rotate the head, no, can't do that. I thought, if anything, I'd be able to rotate the arms. But Funko really limited what you could really do with these characters. What you're doing and what you're seeing right now is all he's going to be able to do. But he displays well, and that's the thing that really matters the most. Technically, again, like, he does need the display stand to attach onto the bottom of his feet to finish the look. But if you want to just have him, like, standing on your shelf, he stands fine really without it. Periodically, I have noticed, though, when I put him down, if I don't get him right at a level flat foot, he does seem like he wants to lean back a little bit. So I don't want to speak too soon to say that you don't really need to have a display stand. I mean, if you have him kind of just in the right position, yeah, as you can see, he stands fine. But if you're obviously looking at this and you're thinking, well, you're really having to struggle to get this guy to stand properly, then by all means, yeah, you definitely make use of the display stand. You know, I think when it comes to Christmas Vacation, Clark is about the only character we've actually gotten in the Vinyl Sugar line. I don't even know if Funko still makes Vinyl Sugar figures. But I would love, maybe not do the entire Griswold household, but at the very least, Cousin Eddie. Cousin Eddie, either with the little dicky that he has underneath his sweater, or like when he's outside with the flaps on his hat. I think a complimentary piece to Clark Griswold, if Funko in fact still does do the Vinyl Sugars, I think a Cousin Eddie would be perfect to put on then display along with Clark Griswold here. Nice looking figure. Again, I don't really want to necessarily call him a figure because clearly there's nothing at all you can do with him. He's more show than he is to tell. You can't really you can't move his arms. I kind of wish that if anything you could move his arms. I mean, obviously the breaking up of the mold there wouldn't have worked as well to rotate his head. And he's also, again, like really flat. He looks like he's been run over by like a steamroller, in the streets. But other than that, like I really like the look of him. You know, when I ordered this one online, the Retro Festive had them listed for $29.99. So it was about a $30 figure, and then of course a little bit of shipping that went on top of that. You know, for the size of him, I think he's a decorative piece that's going to look really nice on my mantle. You know, I'm kind of thinking out this year for the things I want to put out for Christmas. You know, of course I'm going to have my garland, my little lights, and like the odd little things that I have out every year. But this year I want to kind of add new things to it. So every year I'm either adding or removing stuff. So my mantle isn't going to look the same every single year. This is one that wasn't here last year, but it is one that's going to be making an appearance this year on my mantle. And you never know, it might be one that makes regular visits every year round. Vinyl Sugar is a line from Funko you don't hear anybody talking about anymore. In fact, the only other time I came across Vinyl Sugars in the wild at a comic book store, they had one Peter Venkman from the Ghostbusters line. I think I remember looking on the back of the box to see what other things they had. They had a Ray Stantz and an Egon Spangler. I think Winston got left out altogether. The only other Vinyl Sugars I've been tempted to pull the trigger on were the Seinfeld ones. Having seen the Kramer, I think they also did a Jerry as well. But it's one of those things that they did one, but then they didn't do any other characters. Like I did say in this review, to get a Cousin Eddie of this design would have gone perfectly to be displayed with Clark Griswold, and yet Clark is the only one that we got from National Lampoons. As I did say, though, in this review, one idea to throw out there, obviously the actors are too old now to be on film. We don't even want to think about, I don't want to think about National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2 where Eddie is on his own. I mean, if they ever want to do a follow-up film to the first classic one, maybe consider the idea to do a stop motion, one that maybe looks like it's made out of claymation. They probably don't have to spend as much time to do it out of physical clay with people moving the individual parts separately and then taking a still of it. But I mean, they could probably do something in CG to make it look like it's done in claymation. Looking like this, I think would be a perfect follow-up film to the original classic. What do you guys, though, think of Vinyl Sugar's Clark Griswold? It's an interesting enough line, but I can see certainly why people didn't get on board this. Because again, like, Funko's really bad for this. They need to go on the naughty list. They produce like one figure for this line, and then you don't get any other characters for them. And then you're like looking at them on the shelf, and you're like, well, that's fine to get a Clark, but I would have liked to get other characters to go along with this. And sadly, Clark was the only one that we ever got. If you guys did enjoy this video, though, do it a solid. Hit it with with a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Obviously, we are wrapping up things right now with a pretty flat-looking Clark, but there are more Christmas spots coming your way. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.